work my zipper here.
Up or down? Oh, your jacket. That's less interesting. Okay, I think we're live.
Thank you. Do I have an echo?
No, 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 no.
I wonder if I should try to do a show without headphones, because now your voice is just coming out the speaker. I've never done a show without headphones.
Well, I can't hear any adverse effects.
Can you guys in the comments? Can anyone hear an echo? Oh, it's so weird not being the host of the show.
Well, you just took over for a second, so that was. I was about to be like, "Hey, back the fuck off."
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Stay in my lane. Stay in my lane.
No, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for forcing me. Thanks for forcing me. This is so out of my comfort zone. Even I was just doing a podcast with Facundo, and he started asking me questions, and I was like, "Fuck, I hate this."
He is so handsome.
Yeah, he's the man.
He's like remember those Abercrombie models? He's like one of them who grew up.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's Justin Trudeau. If Trudeau was actually a man, if Trudeau had a penis, he would be. Yeah. That's what it looks like when you put a penis on Trudeau. He turns into Facundo.
All right. I'm just going to say right out of the bat, I've lost track of the comments. So if something interesting pops up that catches my eye, I'll put it up. But I
already tried to click some, like to bring them up, and I'm like, nope, I don't have that authority here.
Yeah, no. I mean, I can give it to you. You're probably better than me.
No.
So you were afraid is probably the wrong word. You were apprehensive about coming on for a long time.
Yeah, I just don't want to. I loved Howard Stern, and back in the day, but whenever he would go, do you know who that is? He's a radio commentator or radio host.
Yeah, didn't he used to be like real edgy in the 80s or something? And then
and he still is pretty. He's pretty wild. He gets pretty crazy, and his show was really funny, and he was very candid. But whenever he would go and do interview shows, I wouldn't like him as much because it seemed forced. Okay. And then I started thinking, that anytime I'm on a podcast, I feel, I feel like that, like it's not really me, like I'm putting on a shtick and it's not really who I am. But when I'm interviewing people on my show, it is who I am.
But do you feel like you're doing it, or do you think that people will feel like you're doing it?
I don't. It's a fucking great question. I have no idea.
I'd say it's probably the latter.
That I just think that, but it's not really.
You overthink it. Yeah,
I overthink it. There's more pressure to come onto someone else's show. You don't want to drop at least for me, I don't want to drop the ball for them.
I've done three other shows. I did four technically. I did one with Clydesdale.
Mm-hmm. Scott Schweitzer.
Yeah, ages ago. And I remember like finishing the call or the interview or whatever, went downstairs and my wife was like, how did that go? And I was like, I talked way too much. Like way. I was like, don't
after every show.
I was like, don't give any dead air. And then you can't be put on the spot, or you can't say, if you're just talking nonstop, like no one else. And then the other two I recorded one with Ben Bergeron and Chasing Excellence, put that out. So technically,
wow,
I'll count that. But then the other two I recorded never got released. So I don't know what that says. And there was no like.
Who were those with?
One, I haven't seen any episodes from them since. They were like, we're recording like, a chunk of like a bunch of episodes, and we're going to put them all out over the next, 10 weeks or whatever. And I haven't seen one from them, like any from them. So I'd say it never got off the ground. They were kind of bringing it back. They did it during COVID, and then they were bringing it back. And then the other one was with Europe is Coming, the programs podcast. But the host that actually came up to me and was like,
John Singleton, when you say the programs. Okay.
And Vic, she's the host of it, and she was like, she came up to me at it's either Lowlands or London, and was like, I'm really sorry that never came out. It just got lost in the like open and then the quarters and that kind of like buzz, and it never seemed like a good time to bring it out. And I was like, no, it's no problem. But like for the previous 8 weeks, I was like, you're a shit. Yes, that's why that never came out. So then
thanks for wasting my fucking time. You know what I hate is when they just started a podcast and they want me to be their first guest. That doesn't happen anymore, but I always took that as an insult. Like, fuck you. Like, dude, get 100 podcasts under. I'm not your fucking guinea pig.
Yeah, unless I guess they've done something else, you know, like unless they have some kind of reputation as something.
Yeah, if you're Dave Letterman and then you're starting a podcast, I'll come on. But I don't like, I don't want to be your unless I really like you or something. Like, basically the reason why I did this podcast for two reasons. One, I need to practice, and two, because I like you and we're friends and we're text buddies, and so I do it when I don't want to be too harsh here, but when I have podcasts on, I just go on. I just listen to other. Let's say if I was going to have you on as a guest, I would go listen to other podcasts you've been on, and then just plagiarize. Right. So if someone asked you, "Do you have any kids?" then I'd make a note, and I'd be like, "Okay, talk about his kids." But when I use yours as to plagiarize off of you, it's a pleasure listening to your work. And I can't say that about a lot of podcasts. I really cannot. There are so many fucking shit podcasts out there. The hosts just who don't take care of their fucking guest. Take care of your fucking guest.
Yeah, no, I
know what I
appreciate
mean by that.
Yeah, no, I do. I think to be honest, I think I did like a solo episode the other day. I kind of do one every Christmas Eve just because I tell myself it's a tradition after like 3 times. But I think a lot of the problem is like, I've gone through a lot of phases while doing this of like, okay,
how many shows are you in?
This is 266 or something.
Yeah, crazy.
But like I kind of, for the first like year, I was like, I'm in over my head, don't know what I'm doing, just keep running, because if like I was like, you know, that guy who runs the marathon and takes off with the pack that's in front, and like keeps pace for a certain amount of time and then just runs off into a ditch. Like, that's how I kind of saw myself for the first year. I was like, eventually I'm just going to keel over off the side of the road and people will wonder where I went. And then that was during like COVID and stuff, and loads of people were like starting podcasts and disappearing, then starting, then disappearing. So when I was outlasting those, I felt kind of like, okay, well, I'm obviously I've got something, because I'm outlasting those people. And then the second year was like, I kind of got into this thing of, oh, I need to chase like big names, or I need to chase, like, I got obsessed with numbers, and I got obsessed with how many listens, and it was a failure if it didn't get above. I had this thing of like, after 2 days, if it wasn't above 400 people, I fucked up, like something was wrong or whatever. But then most recently, the last year, and it speaks to what you were just talking about there, where I was like, right, it actually doesn't matter. Like, I kind of started seeing the show as like a stage for other people to like stand on. And then people like, say, Fraser will come on and he'd bring a big fuck off spotlight, like a massive spotlight. And then the idea was that would kind of bleed on to other people. And then if someone came on that didn't have a spotlight, maybe some of Matt's will be left behind, and, you know, some people would stay back and look at it or whatever. But I think the people you're talking about are people who are like, you're probably an exception to this, and I think Scott from Clydesdale is an exception to it. But a lot of people are like, oh, it's my show, it's about me. And if a guest comes on, they kind of use that guest to get the best out of themselves, forgetting the fact that, like, this is someone that's agreed to come and give them an hour or however long and sit down with them. And they kind of, you know, just kind of push past any, I guess, like, courtesy or whatever that should be there, that you should be looking after the person and doing right by them. And instead they're just like me a bit.
I like interjecting, and I like making the show about me is not the right word, but it's a close cousin to about me. But that being said, like, give a fuck about your guest. Like, this is the question that I don't like. This is the question. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh no, there's so much worse than that.
I want to, like, I just take your podcast license away from you.
No, there's the worst one for me is, say if I'll think of an example. Like Fikowski getting cut and Vellner getting cut and whatever, 2019. If someone had them on their show afterwards, like, so you got cut from the CrossFit Games, yeah, tell me a bit about that. It's like, so you want them to do all the digging themselves and give you them, you want them to mine the gold, and you just sit there.
You don't even really give them a valid starting point. It's like, dude, How about
Yeah.
something like more like how old? Like at that point, I just know it's going to be fluff. I know it's just going to be like, at least have done your research if you're going to do that and take the lazy man's way out. Be like, this is my guest. This is Peter. He's 37 years old. He lives in Ireland. He has a kid. You know what I mean? At least, I mean, even that kind of bugs me a little bit. But I understand sometimes it's a good way to really, get the air runner going. Yeah, just take care. Just actually give a shit. But on the other hand, I do want to. I care more about my listeners than I do my guest.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so I want them. If I interrupt my guest 10 times and three of them are inappropriate, that's okay, because they would really hate the show if I didn't those other 7 times when they needed to be interrupted. Like if they're just off on some sort of fucking tangent. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they start bringing the show down. I can't do that. You can't. Yeah, I can't let you bring the show down.
Yeah, I've heard you say, I can't remember who you're talking to, but I heard you say that I sometimes I let people talk too much and I like let them dive off a cliff.
Scares the shit out of me.
But like, I think I'm like that in general anyway. Like, I think I'm the same on this as I am in my, living room or whatever you call it, sitting room, front room, whatever. Where like, if you came over here and you were in my house, I kind of, maybe it's a self-esteem thing, I don't know, but I kind of don't view myself as being very interesting. So then if you came over, I'd be like asking you loads of shit. And then if you ask me a question back, I'd be like, oh yeah, I mean, it's this, that, and the other. Tell me more about, and I go back to whatever. Like even with my own family, like my in-laws, I'd be quite close with them. And like sometimes they ask me questions. I've tried to stop myself where they ask me questions about, say, work or like something outside of the podcast. And I know that I don't sound interested. Like, I know that I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's fine, it's work. And then when they ask me about this, I can feel myself being like, oh, well, and I get really into it. So I'm trying to not be like too dismissive about other topics.
So but you like, love this thing. You love this thing.
I absolutely fucking adore it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
How come?
I just think because I don't think I've ever had, since like from when I was a kid to now, say, or till I started this, I don't think I ever had like a creative outlet. And I think when I was a kid, I had it a lot. I used to, I used to write poetry, like when I was in, say, elementary school or whatever. Well, like my mom used to write it and I put my name on it and we'd win. But like, I used to do that. I used to write like short stories and draw and stuff like that. And then when I got older, I just stopped. I was like, oh, poetry's shit. Like people think I'm weird. So I just stopped doing that. I stopped doing all that kind of stuff. And then when I started doing this, I was able to like fuck around with logos and, like write emails and, do all that kind of stuff. And I kind of got into it. And then I think it's probably the same with you. The kind of community aspect of it, of where like same people turn up like week on week, and you get that kind of engagement and that feedback and stuff, and I think that's really nice. But like, say with your show, where so you obviously did the CrossFit podcast originally, and then the media and all that kind of stuff, and you had like a reputation, I suppose, for people in the know. You had a reputation of like a storyteller and stuff, but a lot of people would have seen that behind the scenes stuff and maybe not realized it was you, if you know what I mean. Like a lot of people would have been kind of blind.
You mean not connect the guy in the behind the scenes as the guy doing the podcast?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah. Were you surprised, like, say 6 months into doing this, were you surprised at how much attention it was getting and how many people were listening and how many people were coming back and whatever? Because like, I think originally you were like, oh, I want to get to, I can't remember if you said 1,000 or 500 or something. You were just like blitzing towards that number. But like, there was, even though you're doing a lot of episodes, there was still that kind of snowball effect where like the guests just got huge really quick, and the episode length and episode frequency got really, really impressive as well. Like, was that always part of the plan, or did the kind of growth shock you a bit?
If you remember, before I started the Sevan podcast, I was doing that podcast with Josh and Matt.
The Batman story, we all remember for that.
And so when I switched off to do my own podcast, that was really humbling, right? And I would have like 20 live viewers. and going from that podcast where it was a really low production value, but it was just three guys chopping it up. And that was an interesting situation because that Matt, I'm speaking out of turn here, but I think I'm pretty safe. Matt and Josh, I don't think prepared for that podcast, right? And so I would prepare for it to make sure that it moved forward. There were no official roles. It was just going to be three guys coming on and talking. But obviously, I quickly found out, that podcast still, even though we haven't published anything there, has more subscribers than my podcast. And it was humbling. It was humbling at first. I got to, if I recall the way he said it. So at first I was like, oh shit. Like I can't believe how few people are watching. And then when it finally started picking up, I started getting really uneasy. I started really getting uneasy about how many people were. I mean, even though it's not 30,000 at a time, but even like 100, I would be like, holy fuck, there's 100 people here giving me their time, right? And I want to make sure I don't screw it up. And then I did go through that phase also where I felt like I had to get big guests. I felt like it was hunting animals at the safari. Like, can I keep getting bigger guests? Can I keep getting bigger guests? And then more recently, I've slipped into the fact that, and I remember I told Tommy Marquez this when I worked over at CrossFit. He said, hey, what's the point of the podcast? And I said, the point of the CrossFit podcast, obviously is to share these stories with people. But for me personally, I want to show that I can ask questions and make every single person interesting. I can go somewhere with someone with every single person and people walk away and be like, holy shit. And make every single interview entertaining. And I'll never forget his response to me. I was probably 50 shows in. He goes, well, you're not there yet. And I was like, damn.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm at with the Sevan podcast now. Basically, there's two things tugging, right? I don't want to, I can become afraid of guests. But I also, if I don't have any big names on, like when I had Patrick Bet David on, I was fucking terrified. But I also, when I had Kayla Harrison on, it was pretty nervous, just for a few seconds. You know what I mean? It goes away pretty quickly. But on the other hand, so I don't want to get lazy and just keep having people on who are small names because they don't make me nervous. But on the other hand, I want to prove to myself and to the world that like you could pick any Joe off the street and hear the most profound fucking story ever. And so there's kind of that tug of war. It is getting more difficult for me to get guests since I lost my blue checkmark account on Instagram.
Does that just mean that you just don't go into requests? Is that the difference?
I don't know. I don't know. I think that when you have a blue check mark and you DM someone, it just pops to the top of their shit, or something. Or like even someone like me, like if I'm scrolling, I do answer every single one of my DMs. I spend 2 hours every single day answering DMs. It's like a huge part of what I do.
I did the same thing. It takes like 6 minutes.
And it's where I'm curating a ton of my content too, because I have these people who are like big contributors to the show, unofficial big contributors to the show. But if I do see someone with the blue check mark, that I will for sure, it will get my attention, right? I won't let it go unseen. So that, it was a trip, that journey I took with Josh and Matt, and then. But I had a couple people I had 3 people who really believed in me. Dave Castro really believed in me. My wife really believed in me, more than believed in me. And Matt Souza, they were insistent that I do it. All 3 of them.
With Castro, so that was you went live with him at the ranch, wasn't that it? That was the first like live show.
No. Oh, no, we didn't go live.
Was it live on his Instagram maybe or something?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe it was live on his Instagram.
I remember you being nervous about it being live.
Yeah,
that it was.
Yeah. I was terrified live, and now I can't imagine not going live. The thought of not going live now makes me want to vomit.
I did. So I'm the opposite. I did like 7 nervous wheeze before this, like fight or flight. I was like, empty the bladder, like get ready to run.
You mean you started live?
No, this episode.
Oh, right.
Oh, like I was talking
Once
to
you
my
get
wife.
used to it though, Peter, you will not go back.
Well, like that's the thing. My wife was like, she's like, "What are you going to talk to me about?" And I was like, "Oh, I've got some stuff written down, but I can't remember what I wrote down." I suppose that's the purpose of writing it down. But then she was like, I was making a coffee, and she was like, "Are you nervous?" And I was like, "I'm absolutely shitting it." And she was like, "Why?" And she was like, "Cause it's him or what?" And I said, "No, cause it's fucking live." I was like, "I don't care who it is, but when it's live." But then I was like, "Well, this is what I felt like before I first talked to fucking." Vellner or whatever. Whereas now when he comes on, I'm just totally doesn't like I could walk in 2 minutes beforehand and just sit down and go. Whereas the first time I was like, is the light bulb going to go? Like what happens if like I spill water on myself? I was trying to come up with all these like worst case scenarios to fix that were never going to happen. But yeah, I think the live thing is like it really adds an element of, and like it doesn't really change anything, because if we pre-recorded this and you talked about, like, I never edit them anyway. Like I might take out the beginning bit and I might take out the end bit of like the preamble of like, oh, you happy, like just before I went live where I was like, oh, you're happy to go ahead, and you were like, yeah. Like I delete that bit and I delete the awkward bit at the end where I'm trying to X out of the fucking page, and they're like,
that is the worst part when you're
they're like,
to
am I live? Am I not live? So I edit out those bits, but I never take out anything in the center unless the person messages me and is like, hey, I'm going to get in a shit ton of trouble if I leave that bit in. Can you take it out? Or I wasn't allowed to talk about that, or, that kind of stuff. But like, yeah, like the live thing in when I really think about it, doesn't change anything apart from the fact that there's extra people in the room. That scares me a bit, that there's other people.
Oh, dude. The first time I saw it go over 1,000 live viewers, I felt a little mini anxiety attack. and then at Wadapalooza last year, their stream went down. And I saw the live stream. I can't remember if it was 7,000 or 13,000 or 4,000, but it was a number. And I almost put tape on my screen. I was like, I cannot possibly. But what's crazy too is I've had a half dozen shows where the guest doesn't show up.
Yeah.
And then the show must go on. So I keep, let's say if you keeled over in that chair right now, I have notes to take over the show. And I always there's always one show over here it's just a thread, and it's called live call-in shows, and I'm just ready at a moment's notice. And I'm lucky because I have Caleb, right?
Yeah.
How the fucking lucky am I that guy got deployed in the middle of a desert, and now he's just stuck, like he's stuck to me. You know what I mean? Like he's got I'm so lucky I have Caleb. It's nuts.
With those guys, like, so there's this pool of people that you kind of pull from, like some really regularly, some semi-regularly, but like they're mostly, I remember the last time you were on with me, you were talking about Brian Friend, and this was like he'd been on like maybe twice at this stage, and you were like, oh, like he freaks me out a bit, and I like that, and I think I might keep him around and bring him on regularly or whatever. Now he's like an incredibly recognizable name in the space of like, people now know who the person that was doing all this work was for years, and maybe not, like not getting the recognition he deserved or whatever. But also you've got like, Tyler and Sousa and like
Hiller.
Will was around for a long time, and Caleb, and you got this
JR, Taylor,
this huge
John
pool.
Young. Yeah.
When you're like,
I have a thread with them, by the way, that I'm so proud of on my phone. I have a text thread. I got Bill Grundler on it, Chase Ingram, Tyler Watkins. Like I have this group.
Yeah.
It's like, and I'm so, and I pinned it to the top, and I'm so like proud of that group of like, it's like we're horses and we all run in the field together. I'm so proud of that thread. It's crazy that I get to be a part of with those guys.
Yeah, I remember I was talking to Brian from Barbell Spin, and I said,
he might even be on it. That guy might be on it.
Yeah, he is on it because he told me about it. And I was like, just when you think you've made it, you realize there's a thread.
Peter, you're on the outside.
Yeah, I'm in a separate thread, like just face pressed up against the window. Guys?
Yes. Yeah, Peter's outside. Quick, batten down the hatches.
Yeah. Shh, turn off the light. With those guys, do you like vet? Like, how do you just happen to come across them? I know Sousa is probably a bit different, and like, you know, Caleb and Will, they're probably a little bit different. But like, say the regular contributors, do you like have a call with them, or do you just go fuck it, bring them on, and then if it doesn't work, you don't bring them back on, and it's just always worked with all those people?
Yeah, it's the the story with Brian's interesting, right? So he, you know, somehow I don't remember exactly. We probably met on Instagram when I was doing the CrossFit podcast, and that's when I started being like, "Hey, you should come on and hang out with me." Pedro set this up as an interview to get himself into that chat. Fair, yeah, that's smart.
I feel seen.
He has many agendas, and so he started coming around, and then I started the Sevan podcast, and I started having him on, and I actually thought for a second that he would be like on every show.
Yeah,
like that's what I thought. And then I realized, oh, maybe that's just a crutch for me, and he had different plans for himself that I didn't even give a fuck about. In my mind, it was just like all for, you know, the Sevan podcast, but he would want it to be more games oriented, and he didn't want to give up 3 hours every day of his life for the Sevan podcast. Totally fair, right? And so that we went through a little bit. Speed bumps would be way too harsh, but we went through a few months of trying to figure out what our relationship was before it settled down to what it is. I'm in that, and then after that, I had a talk with myself, and I was like, "Hey, don't use anyone as a crutch. Make sure that this is just the Sevan podcast." In my whole life, I've never done that. I've always partnered with other people. I've always felt like I was bringing people along, if you want me to be completely frank. So I was the guy who always worked 7 days a week, and all my partners only worked 5 days a week. And no matter how good they were, how committed they were, or they were better than me, there was always they compartmentalized their life away from whatever film project or artistic project we were working on. And I don't do that. So I told myself, hey, this is just going to be mine. And Sousa, I view Sousa as equal partner. And so Matt Sousa, the owner of CrossFit Livermore, he's the executive producer of the show. Andrew, hey, what's up, dude? And so, but I am a huge fan of cultivating people, but then I want to switch to the character that is John Young. And just because someone doesn't necessarily work, like he doesn't, like different, he doesn't fit in, maybe I'm acutely aware that's absolutely the reason why I need to have him on, that I can't let him go. Do you know what I mean? And same with JR. When JR first started coming around, the fucking dude didn't talk.
Either did Taylor. It's just like silence.
Oh, and Taylor's energy is so fucking low in every fucking show. They all have these things that I remind myself, you don't need to fix those. You need to incorporate those into the show. So I'll make fun of Taylor all the time. Oh, thanks, buddy, for bringing all the energy, you know? But other people like JR, I've seen like he's getting more and more vocal. Or if you
it's the same with Brian Friend. Like I remember Brian Friend being on, and it was like there were moments, and like I love Brian. I think he's fantastic. But there were moments early days where some of it was painful. Like it was like, come on, like
say something.
You know,
say something.
But now, even you see him, like when I see him on other shows, or when I see him, like I attribute a lot of that to, like, okay, 99.9% of it is him, obviously. But I think a lot of that is like you brought that side out in him, and you gave him, you were that stage for him to let him like grow a spotlight and become comfortable and confident and not overawed or not washed out by the like experience or whatever. And like now the whole community is benefiting from that, where they've got this guy who is comfortable going on to any show like with zero prep and just pulling facts and figures out of his ass and like nailing different viewpoints. And like I think one of the things that I really like about him is that, like, and again, I think this is something that maybe he would have been confident doing it anyway, but you acted as the not even devil's advocate, like almost like the village idiot at times, like asking him questions that either were so obvious that it's like, oh, come on, but, or holding opinions that were so like asinine or just like stupid and proposing them to him And you gave him that confidence to be like, no, like, you're a fucking idiot. And he'd explain why you're an idiot. And now he can go on to other shows and other, commentary or whatever, and be confident and comfortable in saying, like, a lot of people think this and they're wrong because, and like going on. And I just think, I think one of the things I'll always be grateful for your show is for him and the kind of confidence and stuff he has. But then also for people like Hiller, who, and I've had him on and I've talked to him, openly said it to him that I thought he was a fucking asshole until I heard him on your show. And then I started giving him the time of day. I didn't know who Taylor Self was or who JR was. And now anything they say, I sit up and listen. And I think there's a lot of other people that are the same, where they just think nothing about these people. And then they see you talk to them and they think, oh, well, maybe I should listen. And now they've got these extra people in their circle of information or whatever. Is there...
Peter, everyone wants to see, those things that they pull up in front of your house and they throw trees into them and it mulches the trees and it goes, it goes back. Everyone wants to see a shoe go in there or a baseball bat, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I try to throw some of those things in there in the chipper, because it's so mischievous. Like, that's how I interviewing people. Like, throw some shit in the chipper that doesn't belong in there, and some of whether it be those people, whether it be questions, but they have to be, you have to throw stuff in there like that, or else it's just another job mulching trees.
Yeah. Well, it just turns vanilla.
Yeah.
That's the, that's the problem. What, with the real media stuff and all, there was a lot of time where that was the
joke. You mean like a couple of years ago when CrossFit had the symposium? No, what's a press conference, and they didn't tell anyone, and then they didn't invite Hiller and I, and the real.
Sure, even the most recent one, you only got in if you had the link that was just being sent around in an inner circle kind of thing.
I do think that they sent Matt Souza a link though, but we were live at the time. But they did send Matt Souza a link. I think they have a guy over there named like Patrick Moynihan or something.
That sounds familiar. Like when you mentioned there that other shows, sometimes you listen to other shows and some of them maybe annoy you is the wrong word, but they frustrate you a bit.
I think they're a waste of space. I think that they're not doing their job. They're not doing excellence. They're not even trying.
But then
it's not just that they annoy me. They're not trying. They're not listening to their. If someone says, "Yeah, I rode a motorcycle, and I jumped over a car," and then you just let that go, it's like, wait a second, how long have you been riding? Like, you just know they're not listening. How long have you been riding motorcycles? Were you wearing a helmet? Was your mom afraid? Like,
was it a mini or a limo? That would be my first question.
Exactly. There's like, was it a Hot Wheel? Right. And so I just am like, fuck you, don't podcast. Like,
but does it annoy you then when those shows or the shows that you view as being like that get a similar level of kudos as your show, say, or as other shows that you do view as putting in effort? The way there's some shows that were like early adopters and their success is like by and large because of that, or there's other shows where maybe the person is famous in some circle or whatever, and then their show is like successful because of that, or gets listens or sponsors or whatever because of the kind of personality that's there. Or like something that annoys me now is that, like, for me, podcasting is like this. It's like you in your living room or your office or whatever, and me in this room, and like, oh, maybe someday I'll be able to buy a new laptop if I save or whatever. Whereas now there's these like fucking corporations, because radio isn't being listened to. Now they're like, oh, well, we should just build a podcast studio for like $1 million and hire some celebrity to come in and host it. And it's like the fucking whatever VHI health podcast. And it's like talking about shit that nobody ever wants to talk about, but it'll get X amount of listeners just because it's famous or whatever. Like, does that kind of thing, like, do you ever give any kind of bandwidth to that kind of thing or comparison in that way?
I'm as much as I joke around about falling below 20,000, it really doesn't bother me at all. I'm super duper happy with the growth, and I'm super duper happy with the community. I'm really, really happy with the regular listeners. I put on, but to touch on what you're saying, I saw Annie and Katrin launched a podcast, and I went over there and I watched a few minutes of it, and I could not fucking believe how beautiful Katrin looked. I could not fucking believe she looked like a fucking angel had fallen out of the sky. And I immediately thought, okay, I was just using the camera on my computer. So I changed it. Now you see I have shallow depth of field. I'm like, Sevan, you have fucking 10 of the world's best cameras at your disposal. Set up a fucking camera, plug it in your computer, and put a shallow depth of field lens on it. So in that regard, I was happy. And then I saw that they had 53,000 views or 63,000, I can't remember, on their first podcast. And I was like, well, son of a bitch. But they did a second podcast, and it's not going to crack 10,000. And then I know what's going to happen. They're going to do a third podcast, and it's not going to crack 5,000. And they're going to run out of shit to talk to, and they're going to give up. I already know that that's what's coming down the pipe for them. I think that's a fair assessment. And I'm seeing now everyone, and I know this isn't a healthy mindset, but I'm seeing now everyone in the space is really wilting. The space is, something's going on in the space, and people are struggling to get views. And this show is not. And so we're still having enormous success with the sponsors that are bold enough to come with us, Paper Street Coffee and California Hormones. And then we're doing great on Spotify, and we're doing great on Apple. And I feel pretty pumped. I avoided other podcasts because I didn't want to be, by other podcasts, I mean big podcasts like the Tim Pool podcast, because I thought that it would hurt my feelings. I would go over there. I don't know if you know who that is, but he gets like 40,000 live viewers. And I thought it would hurt my feelings if I went over there and watched his shit. Well, last week I went over there and watched something of his because Matt Souza told me I should. And I saw, holy shit, my podcast is 1,000 times better than that podcast. That's not fair. Twice as good as that podcast. I'm going to cut it from 1,000 twice. Like it's funnier, it's edgier, deeper questions. And I just realized, okay, I just have to stay the course. I just haven't found people. The people just haven't found me yet. And Andrew Hiller gave me some advice the other day. I'm paraphrasing. This is my takeaway from it. He said, hey, you're asking people to commit to 90 minutes before they even know you. You should start making some shorter content so that people can get to know you. And then that shorter content will be like, oh, I'll give this guy's podcast a listen. So that's kind of where I'm at in the evolution. And I know that if overnight, if I started having 20,000 live viewers, am I really ready? Am I really ready? Am I ready for that? Like, just trust the process. And I know I wake up, I'm like you, like I wake up every morning and I cannot fucking believe I get to do another podcast. I'm so excited. We incorporated the phone with the live call in. That's something that I don't know anyone else is doing in the space. We go live, we're consistent. Even just now on Christmas and Christmas Eve, the reason why I did those shows is one, I wanted to, and two, someone in the comments said, hey, I'm staying up late wrapping presents for my kids. It was Christmas Eve night, and thank you for keeping me company. And that was it. That's exactly why I wanted to do the show, because I know that's exactly who I wanted to be there for. So I no, it doesn't. Unfortunately, I think that I'm absolutely killing it in the space, and so I have a really healthy dose of confidence. So I haven't gotten to any place like, I mean, I have fewer subscribers than almost everyone in the space that those people have been around for 10 or 15 years, and yet we have way more views. And so I'm stoked, man. I'm really, really excited. I hope I can make a living doing this. I'm not there yet, but it's good. But it's not, it doesn't break even. And when I say it doesn't break even because I have 3 fucking kids and a wife and I got shit going on.
Yeah. I get asked that a lot. Like, oh, what's the goal with the podcast? Is it to quit your job? And I my answer is always like, I mean, yeah, if I didn't have a mortgage, 2 kids, like,
Yeah.
I'm a teacher. It's not exactly a high paying job, but like,
what do you teach?
Like elementary school. Like, I don't know how it works there, but we teach everything, like all the subjects.
Right. Yeah. Here too. And we indoctrinate the kids. You indoctrinate the kids good?
Oh, like as soon as they walk in the door.
Okay, yeah. Good.
The second their ass
hasn't list of things to be offended by. You give them a list of things to be offended by.
Their ass hasn't hit the seat, and we're already like, you can't think like that. No, but it's I think people kind of get confused when I don't know what maybe they just think that it's real lucrative, or like that. It's, I don't know, just this kind of skewed vision of, I think, what is actually feasible or possible. Like a lot of the stuff, like I get to go to Wadapalooza now in January, and that's just because of a generous sponsor who was like, "Would you like
that's
to go?"
awesome.
And I
Congrats.
was,
That's
I was like,
awesome.
"Fuck yeah, I want to go." So Fitter, like, they're going over and bringing me with them to like just mess around a bit, I guess. But
do you reach out? Did you get those sponsors, or do they come to you?
they're all what would you call it? Like organic, like
Yeah.
say Rad, like Ben from Rad was on the show before they launched last year. They launched in Miami, and he was on before. He was like in his hotel in Miami the day before when we recorded, and we just stayed in touch. Like I was like messaging him saying best of luck with the launch, and then afterwards was like, how did it go? And we just kind of chatted a bit, and then he said like, oh, if there's ever a way to be involved, just let me know. And then I was kind of planning on doing a little series, like a little run of 5 episodes on a Friday, and I asked him, would he want to sponsor it? Like, would he want to be involved, and I could put his name to it, and it could help each other out or whatever. Now, at that time, it would have helped each other out. Now it just helps me because like rather massive. But he was like, yeah, like, how would it work? And I was kind of explaining, and he was like, well, let's just do a year. And I was like, oh, okay, like, sure. And
That's
then
awesome.
same with like GoWad, Thibaut from GoWad, like was similar. He heard, I told him, he sponsored like an open series, like say he's such a good guy, but he sponsored an open series last February, say, and then Pliability were coming on, or Romwad were coming on to talk about the fact that Pliability was that they were changing the name basically. And I asked him, is it okay? Like, he hadn't sponsored a show in like whatever 8 months, but I was like, are you all right with this? Like, I can say no. And he was like, oh, it doesn't bother me at all. He was like, to be honest, I'd be interested to hear what the reasoning is. And then after they came on, I got an email saying, oh, we'd be interested in sponsoring the show or whatever. And then I was like, look, I'll just have to say it to Thibaut, because it's very similar companies, and he was involved. He gets first refusal basically. And I asked him if what he thought, and he just goes, he replied, it was like, no fucking way, we're not having that. He's like, I'll sponsor the show. So like,
Awesome.
like those,
yes.
they're all like,
that's a good sponsor. That's a good sponsor.
They're all like those kind of like organic, like conversations that led to chats and friendship and that kind of stuff. And then it was like, oh, we'd love to be involved, rather than me emailing people being like, I've had 1 or 2 of those where I've been approached through a third party being like, oh, they're interested, like, how would that work? And they never really turn out that well. It's always kind of forced, and they're like always asking about numbers, and I'm like, I don't really have that kind of information that you want. Like, I know my my demographic and like roughly the age range and that, but I don't know like how many people in what country. I just know that someone in that country, like someone in Zambia, listens, but I don't know how many.
Someone left their computer on.
Yeah, I'm fucking telling you, I was number 3 in Zambia for like a month.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hey, I see stats like that too. I'm like, I don't know that country, but I'm number 1.
I like, someone's obviously using a dodgy IP, like a VPN thing or something. But sorry, I just want to go back to those that crew.
By the way, that pisses me off. By the way, none of that other stuff pisses me off. It pisses me off that no sponsors. It makes me want to lash out at people.
Well, I was going to ask you, so
makes me want to just attack.
You, similar to that thread is the thread of like guests who refuse to come on your show.
Yeah.
Who's
like refused? Who's refused?
Well, Danny Spiegel refused, didn't she?
I can't give her yes, she did. But I can't give, she did. I can't, that's kind of turned into something. That tree is still giving. Okay, but let's put her in there. Let's put her in there. Danny.
That became a running joke, I guess, as well. Of like
Danny. You maybe I could throw maybe Matt Fraser in there.
Yeah.
Jason Hopper doesn't text me back anymore. Who else? Freya Moosebrugger didn't say she wouldn't come on, but if she did come on, she wouldn't allow my misogynistic ways. I'll throw her on there. Who else won't come on?
Are you actually writing down a physical list?
Yeah. Anyone in the comments, let me know who. Mal. Well, Mal's never said no, but I can't get in touch with her.
Didn't Chandler Smith say something about his mom?
Oh, Chandler can't. Oh, there's another huge name that I don't want to say who it is because they were kind enough to tell me that they can't go on, but I'll just write huge name that told me they won't come on.
Why did they give you a reason?
They said they want to stay away from controversy.
So like that, does that ever?
Oh, Laura Horvat. Yep, Horvat.
She was on a couple of times though, wasn't she?
She was on once. God, I would love to have her back on. That's the first one of all those. If I could choose one, Danny, Matt, Hopper, Freya. Who's this that I wrote? Who did I say after Freya? I can't recognize my own writing. It just says Mac. Anyway, Chandler, huge name. Horvat. I would really love to have Horvat on. I think I haven't really pushed on Brent Fikowski.
Oh, he would. I think he would if you.
I think one time he responded to me that he'll think about it or something.
No, I think
we have a very interesting relationship.
He's in the same. I put him in the same barn. I nearly said the same barn. That was how you pissed him off originally, wasn't it? I think I put him.
What did I say? Because I did what? What did I say about him?
Wasn't he? Because someone outed him as being with Mayhem.
Oh yes. I said he sleeps in the back.
But I put him in the same stable as Vellner, who's like, no problem. You know, like with chat, if he has the time.
Vellner's Vellner's got to be probably overtaken Josh Bridges as the best guest. Vellner's awesome.
Yeah, he's really good. He's really good. But has there ever been a time when you've been doing the show where you've been like, oh, maybe I should just be closer to the middle of the road so that those sponsors or those guests or whatever are less likely to say no?
I couldn't do that. I don't think, because I would. The reason why I have the energy to do my life is because I'm free. And so when I'm not free, I'm torn, because, I'll sometimes try to do a show. I'll tell myself before the show, don't swear. And the reason why I don't want to swear, one, if it's a young guest, like if I had Kerstetter on, I don't want to swear because I know her parents are listening and she's on, and it's a value I have. But then on the other hand, I like the attempt at being the discipline, the opportunity to be disciplined, right? It's like using the balance block. It's not the most exciting thing, but it's fun to you have to go out there and balance on one foot. But I really want to explore. It's who I am. I really want to explore like the harder topics. I want to know what I want to know, and I'm just so thank you, Brandon. No, he said no one wants a middle of the road Sevan. I just think it would tap me of too much energy. I definitely couldn't lie. I definitely couldn't toe the road. But yeah, people in my close inner circle have talked to me about, well, they haven't talked directly to me about it, but they've talked to other people who said, yo, so-and-so said that you're fucking up and you're never going to get big sponsors and you're never going to be big time because you bring up the, you know what I mean? That you like, I think it's like the fact that you can't go up to someone who's black and be like, hey, can I touch your hair? That's racist is fucking absolutely insane to me. It's fucking nuts. Or these words like cultural appropriation. Like I just can't, I can't. Of course you should do cultural appropriation. You should be stealing everything you can to make yourself better. And I hope that everyone steals. I hope everyone out there makes tabbouleh. It's an Armenian dish, but it's fucking great. Steal it. I don't, it's just that I just can't stay away from those topics, And so it's who I am. Now, maybe Peter, to test out your theory, maybe if someone were to say to me, hey, we'll give you $500,000 a year, but you can't talk about abortion anymore. Fuck, who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, who knows?
So the t-shirt will be unbuyable, question mark.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, money's awesome.
Yeah.
Money's so awesome. Yeah, what you can do with money and money's cool.
Those people.
Yeah. So do you think that that's what it is? You think that it's just like, fuck, we can't sponsor him because it's too polarizing?
No, well, I think that people think they can't sponsor you because it's too polarizing.
But you think they're wrong?
Yeah.
You don't think it would hurt their business? Like if GoWad sponsored me, you don't think like the app would lose 10% of its fucking subscribers?
No, I think that they think it would. Well, I don't know if they do think that, but I think a hypothetical company probably has a fear that that's what would happen. Whereas in reality, maybe like one or two people will be like, oh, I am outraged. But I mean, are they really the fucking people you want to have around anyway? And then the people that are left, probably half of them won't even realize, like, what would eventually so okay, any company that's maybe on the fence, or like even just a little bit over the fence of like, no, I couldn't work with Sevan just because of blah blah. Like, there's 105 people watching this now. The last time I did a live, there was 6. So like,
Okay.
you know, if you look at it just from that perspective, the 6 people that were watching the show the last day that I did a live, I'm sure of those 6, 5, if not 6 of them.
Only 2 are like, fuck that, I'm not listening to this one.
5, 5, if not 6 of them would be here if they could, or maybe are here or whatever. Whereas the 100 extra people that are here wouldn't have been here had you not come on. So I think brands need to look at it that way, that maybe like 1 to 5% of the current crop of supporters of your brand might be a bit like, oh, fuck's sake. Whereas like the extra people that would come in, like, you know, company like GoWa they don't need to fucking sponsor anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, they don't need to do it. They don't need to sponsor CrossFit Games. Like, everyone fucking knows what GoWa is. Like, and anyone who's watching or at the CrossFit Games fucking definitely knows who GoWa are. But like, they do it because it's like they can afford to do it. They're in a position to do that. Like, they have the money there and they have the power there to do it. Like,
and they're feeding the ecosystem too. It's
like, look, the ecosystem. The list of brands at the bottom there, it doesn't benefit any of them to sponsor my show, but they know that they're in a position that they are able to facilitate it, and they are in a position to help me, which, like, rising tides will help other things around it. So then they do it. So I think that people who are afraid to go onto your show, I think, to be honest, I think they just lack the confidence to hold their own in a conversation, and to be able to say, like, if I was on your show and you brought up something that I didn't want to talk about, I just say, like, no, like, you know, like, move on. Like, I've had that where I've asked someone a question, they'd be like, nah. You can tell, like, if they don't say it, you can tell, okay, they really don't want to talk about that. But I think it's a bit of a fool's errand or whatever, or just stupid to be like, you know, you and Susan were talking about it before on your show, where it's that echo chamber thing of like, we'll all just agree with each other all the time on everything, and anyone that we disagree with, we'll just close that door, won't listen to them, won't talk to them, and then we'll all just go back to patting each other on the back, and, you know, but then nobody changes or does that. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of the stuff that you talk on your show about, I'm not sure what the percentage will be, but we'll just hypothetically say like 80-20. 80% of the stuff you talk about, I think, yeah, that's an enjoyable topic. I'm happy to be involved in that conversation, or to listen, or to, you know, like, maybe say something back to the speaker because I forget that I'm not actually in the room. Whereas like there'd be 20% then where I'd be like, that makes me uncomfortable, or I like vehemently disagree with what's being said there, or that angers me, like what's being said there angers me. But then of that 20%, most of the time I need to like just say to myself, like, simmer the fuck out, like, you know, like, just calm down, because just because I disagree with him doesn't mean he's wrong or I'm wrong.
Or maybe it's also right. Like a good stimulus. Like, I have this heater here and it burns my hand when I put it on it, but I still do it. You know?
Well, a lot of the stuff that you talk about is stuff that I'd never think about. Like, it wouldn't even be in my realm of consciousness, especially because I think I'm not in America. Right. So like, you know, a lot of my stuff kind of comes third party or whatever. So a lot of stuff that you talk about, I'd never really think about. And then when you do talk about it, I'm kind of driven to be like, oh, like, what's the point? Well, actually, maybe he does have a point. I've never thought of it that way, or or it might make me think of something else, some totally different topic that I have this like long held opinion on. And then something you say about, I don't know, like fucking racism or whatever, makes me think about that topic, that like, oh, well, if he can make me think twice about that, maybe I need to think twice about this, or maybe I need to be less married to my beliefs on that thing or whatever.
That's like the coolest thing about the show.
Yeah.
I had that guest on, Garrett Glinton. She was the black lady with who was a lesbian. And I got to, and she was, you know, complete opposite side of my thinking. And she listened to whatever 200 shows she said. And I wish you were this radiator too. Oh God, I would run my fingers through your hair in a second, Clive. Is that what everyone looks like in your country? That's what I just picture. Like, is he from Ireland also?
Yeah, I think he's from Northern Ireland.
Like if you typed in the word Ireland, Irish man, I just feel like that's the picture that pops
I
up.
mean, we're both Irish men and we both look different from each other. So I'd
I know,
argue
I know.
that
I don't believe you're in
in
Ireland.
your
I'm just
in your pool of two, your theory is falling apart.
But when she said to me, "Hey, you know, I listened to your show and I would listen to it and you would piss me off and every time you talked about, and then after 200 shows, she was like, I had another guest on, Xavier Montague, or I forget his last name, but he talked about his journey from being at the heart of BLM to fucking waking up, and the fact that it woke her up too, to be like, oh shit, those are like, that's the shit I call my mom and read to her, even though my mom doesn't agree with me, because those are like those are crowning achievements for me. If I can help someone just go just a tiny bit like this, because that's what happens to me when I do the show too. I mean, when I'm on the show, it may seem like I know some shit, but really I'm learning in real time with everyone else. I don't know my thoughts before I hear them come out of my mouth. So,
with that group,
but I'm never going to get a fucking sponsor because of it.
Well, you got Paper Street.
Yeah. Well, that's Paper Street and
California.
In California Hormones, man, they're just so loyal to the fucking show. Like you were saying, like your guys are. It's just like they just want to keep the ecosystem going.
Yeah, like especially like I'm not that familiar with California Hormones. They're keeping Hiller going all right. But with Paper Street, like if you look at their stories on any given day, there's 2 or 3 athletes especially athletes who like maybe don't get the attention that they deserve. And then Paper Street are sending them stuff or engaging with them or, sponsoring them or whatever. And,
you mean on their Instagram?
Yeah.
I don't even know if I follow Paper Street.
Oh my God. What are they paying you for?
Maybe a moment of, dude. So I got 2 tennis rackets sent to my house and a skateboard, and I didn't even know who sent it. Oh no, I do follow Paper Street, and I couldn't. And then a week later, Gabe told me it was him. I thought that was so fucking cool. Yeah, skateboard and tennis rackets aren't cheap. It was really cool.
That's cool. That group, does it piss you off when other people? I know you jokingly said when I had Taylor on after having Hiller on, you were like, okay, I mean, you can borrow them, but does it piss you off when you see those people getting? Obviously, you want them to grow and you want them to do well and stuff, but are you a bit like? Do you ever try and like hold on to Brian a bit and be like, you can go, but just come back?
Well, it's funny you choose him. Definitely in the beginning, I was 100%. A huge part of his value is the fact that he worked at Morning Chalk Up, or the fact that he worked at the CrossFit Games, or that was a huge, I wanted, it added value to him for me. Right. So just like Facundo coming on the show, like I'm thinking about like what adds value to the show. If he's only on my show, then it doesn't add value to the show. Now he is reached a level that, thank God we're surrounded by fucking morons, because he's reached a level where someone should definitely grab him. And if they do grab him, they should still let him come on my show, because as arrogant as this is going to sound, people come off my show looking good. So if you come on my show and someone doesn't like you, there's a good chance they're going to like you. I can only think of maybe 1 or 2 guests that maybe had a bad experience. No matter if I like you or don't like you, I want you to leave my house with a full stomach. I want you to be like, wow, that was a great experience I had in the Sevan podcast, and my value went up to the audience. You know what I mean? And that would be even my thing. If Danny Spiegel came on, I would treat her like a fucking diamond. Do you know what I mean? I don't do gotcha with people. I don't do any of that. I would be so humble around her. But with Brian, I do, it's not like it keeps me up at night, but I would be bummed if someone picked him up and they said, hey, you can't do any more. But so he works at Barbend now. Yeah. What if they said to him, hey, we're going to start a podcast and you can't go on another podcast? That would bum me out.
Yeah.
It wouldn't upset me, but it would bum me out. I would think, 1, it would be short-sighted on their part. And then 2, it would be like, well, fuck, that I really enjoy doing those shows with Brian. But don't get it twisted. I would just completely start exploiting John Young and JR and Hiller. And I would just start exploiting other people. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I would just start reinvesting elsewhere.
You had you did a call in. I don't know when it was on, but I saw it today. It was you and Hiller and Daniel. I think Daniel Shafee was supposed to be on it or something, and it just ended up being Hiller. Or maybe it was just about him. His name was
it
in
was
the
just
title.
about it was about him. It's one of the things like I can't stop scratching right now is how shitty how shittily they promote the CrossFit media. And here you have two fucking legends on the show. And like it should be everywhere. Everyone should know who Daniel Chafee and Stefan Rocher is if you're a CrossFitter. Yeah.
But you were talking about the previous episode, maybe it was a Christmas Eve one or the one after, where it got pulled down and it got reported or whatever. So this is one of those times
that rocked me. That rocked me. Like if you're a hater and you're listening and you did that, you should know. You point for you. You rocked me. And by the way, if you're taking food out of my family's mouth, and like if I ever found out who you were, it would be fucked for you. You will be so fucked. I mean that with peace and love.
But you're inciting violence now, so this one's going to get pulled.
No. I would kiss them open mouth, no matter who it is, and they would vomit. That's all I'm saying.
But this is one of those times where I was talking back to the speaker, forgetting that I wasn't actually in the room. You were trying to work out who. I'd be willing to bet that people report all of your videos, and that was the only one that was withheld. I'd say people go on.
That's so funny you say that. One of my close friends told me that too. He's like, dude, that's what happened to your Instagram. Do you not understand there's people watching you just to report you?
Oh, they don't give a fuck what they just go on, click report, click a reason. I assume it's the same as Instagram where you pick a reason why you're reporting it, like a vague like subheading. So they click report, click, fucking violence or whatever. And then they've probably done it 100 times. But that one was one where YouTube were like, oh, they must be talking about this bit at the end. Yeah, they're right. And took it down. I'd say the previous episode was probably reported as well, but there was just nothing in it. And maybe yesterday's one as well, but there was just nothing in it.
What's crazy is within getting off that show, within 2 minutes, I was able to pull up 100 clips with Andrew Hiller that were 1,000 times more violent than what I showed. Clips that have videos that have tens of millions of views. It was nuts. It was nuts. What happens if they kick me off, Peter? Can I just start another channel? Or am I banned from YouTube?
Well, Sousa could start another channel and then you could, it could be like the real Sousa podcast, but then you just host it.
Sevan said it wasn't a train wreck. This is Mike Halpin. Sevan said it wasn't a train wreck about me, Tyler and Brian Spin talking about Fit Wars, and it was a huge compliment and drive to do more. Oh yeah, that's how I work too. Did I say Mike Halpin? Oh, I said it wasn't a train wreck. Yeah. I picked on you a little bit too. I gave you a few insults before, but yeah, I actually really did. That was pretty impressive that Halpin and Tyler and Spin pulled that show off. I don't know if you watched it.
We talked about how sponsors are maybe afraid of, or guests are maybe afraid of coming on.
I don't think these guests are afraid of coming on, by the way. I just think that they
might be advised. They might be advised not to be.
Yeah, I think that they are not. Well,
I can't imagine that Chandler Smith is advised not to, but Noah Olsen was okay to come on because they both have a very similar image and they both have the same agent. So I doubt.
Right, but you haven't seen Noah on in a long time.
Well, that's true, but he was on it more than once.
Yeah, he's a great guest.
Yeah, he's good.
He's a fucking great guest. I think Chandler would be. I do. This is going to sound arrogant again. For all the people who don't come on, I do think that it's their loss. It's not my loss. I do think it's their loss. Let me repeat that. If you don't come on the show, let me triple down on that. It's your loss because you're not going to look bad. It's only me that looks bad. You will not look bad. I don't shit on other people.
Like when
I don't shit on my guests. I don't shit on my guests.
when Fit Wars was out, and Wild Zombie started Fit Wars and it came out and everything. One of the things that surprised me was that, like, say, Morning Chalk Up didn't share it, and
Crazy.
I heard you talking about it, and you were saying that CrossFit didn't share it. Like, I understand CrossFit not sharing it because it's not sanctioned or anything, so why would they? I guess, but Morning Chalk Up not sharing it, like, do you think that that is through association with you as well? Do you think that that's similar to brands being like wary, that maybe people are wary of things that are overly, not overly, but heavily associated with you or your show?
I don't know, but when you're there's like really bad shit happening on planet Earth. Like really bad shit, right? We can agree on that, right?
Mm.
But from the moon or from outer space, you look back at this planet and it is fuck. I mean, I know this is pretty arrogant to say as a human being, but it's the holy grail of the fucking cosmos. It's covered in water and fucking trees, and I know I'm being pretty prejudiced and discriminatory about the value of water and air, but it's amazing. And the Earth is what a fucking amazing place. But there's really bad shit happening here. When someone like CrossFit Inc. or Morning Chalk Up, when you want to be the big dick in the room, when you want to be the Earth, you don't give a fuck about, it screams more about them not covering Fit Wars. Like it just shows me what pussies they are and how weak they are. They're not the Earth. I'm going to say something crazy here. Me and Andrew Hiller are the Earth. They're just fucking other planets out there. Like they're showing that they're scared, that they're afraid, and that they're weak. Like, because when I'm the big shit, I'm a beautiful 5'5" Armenian man, but I got really dry skin on my feet. Okay, so that's a shortcoming. But I still go barefoot because I don't care. And the fact that they wouldn't cover that says to me, I know this wasn't your exact question, but it just says more about them. Like they don't believe in themselves. They don't see themselves as the vast ecosystem that they are, that people might perceive them as. For Morning Chalk Up not to cover Fit Wars is just like, holy shit, you're scared, or you don't have the resources. And it's the same thing. Like it's the same thing with the Cocktails podcast. When they do their bits on me, they won't say my name. Like we all know why. It's because you get 65 viewers a show and you're fucking scared, and like you're not walking around with your fucking head up. You're not real. And so that's the way I see it. That's the way I see when CrossFit Inc. does that and they don't cover something as cool as fucking Fit Wars. Like who cares if it's sanctioned or not? It's someone in your fucking community, and everyone there loves CrossFit, right? Everyone. And it's like, I just see it as just complete. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for them. Like I really am embarrassed for them. I'm like, I don't want Morning Chalk Up to go away. I love the fucking melting pot we're in. You know what I mean? Like, oh, there's a sardine. I don't like sardines, but I'm glad you're in the stew. It's like, but when they do that, I just think, holy shit, they're in trouble. That's how I see it. And I think I'm right too. I don't just see it that way, but I suspect that there's metrics that would show that, oh fuck, they're threatened by someone like Fit Wars. Bizarre.
But I think like with barbell spin and those with alternative sources of information or entertainment or whatever, I think that is the antidote to what you're talking about. I think if there was only...
Explain, I don't understand.
So if you only had Morning Chalk Up and you only had, say, Talking Elite Fitness, and they were your two, like, that was it. You had nothing.
Did they cover it? Did Talking Elite Fitness cover it?
No.
So this is a fucking channel that has an emoji draft. Have you seen this fucking thing?
Yeah, I don't. To be honest, I kind of just think that it's just not in my wheelhouse, because it's popular. I don't know why. I don't understand it.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is popular, Peter. Hold on. Let me Talking Elite Fitness emoji draft.
They've had worse ones than that.
125 views in 3 weeks. With fucking, I'm guessing, hold on, let me see. With the Fluffy Duck guy, who's absolutely fucking brilliant. Tommy Marquez, who's been in the space and knows his shit. And Sean Woodland. And then these are like 3 huge names in the sport, and you got 125 views of the emoji draft, but you can't cover Fit Wars. Now listen, so something's fucking wrong with you. Like, yeah, that screams something to me.
I think the
Now you're getting some good shit out of me, by the way, you asshole.
I think the antidote is there for that like problem of like you've got barbell spin. You've like if the coverage from Morning Chalk Up is lacking, you've got if the coverage from Morning Chalk Up
Right.
from their staff of 20 is lacking, you've got a staff of 1 over at barbell spin who can offer an alternative and isn't afraid or isn't contractually obliged or sponsorly obliged or whatever the fuck to cover certain things. Brian can just write an article about whatever the fuck he wants, or I can write one and send it to him and he'll put it up. And if your only source of information is Talking Elite Fitness, from a podcast perspective, you also have the choice of, oh, well, maybe I should listen to Noah Olson on Sevan's show, and then I'll find out more than like what does he eat or whatever. But the problem with that antidote is you need to take it. So like it's on the shelf, but a lot of people just walk past it, not realizing that, that they just think it's only Talking Elite Fitness and Morning Chalk Up that I can get my information from.
Well, they fucked themselves. I mean, I'm just staring at their numbers here. The crowd has wandered away from that YouTube station, and I don't know a lot about emojis, and I don't know a lot about drafts, but it's kind of like shooting yourself in the fucking foot. And I could go. I don't want to like just totally fucking destroy them, but if I pull up their last 20 videos, it hasn't. That one's par with all of them, and if I think it's a lot. Where I go with it, my analysis of it is where I am trapped in my head with it is I think it's a lack of humility. I think it's arrogance. I think it's like if Tommy and Shawnee were to throw a fucking event, I would fucking report on it. And we would come on and we would talk about how great it was if it was great. And they take the thing they're if it is personal why they didn't cover Fit Wars, they're fucking crazy. That's not what's going on here. Like this, don't let our shit get in the way of growing the bigger community. Do you feel me on it? I mean, I hear what you're saying about the antidote. Like it's okay if some people don't cover it, but this was fucking cool. And like this warranted everyone to at least cover it, if for no other reason for fucking Scott Tetlow and Colton Mertens.
Yeah.
But I hear you. Is that what you're saying? You're saying, hey, there's other media sources. We all don't have to cover the same thing.
No, I'm saying there's other media sources, and it's a shame that people don't realize that there is. It's a shame that people think. It's a shame that some people live in that kind of bubble where it's like, well, I listen to Talking Elite Fitness do their what's your favorite cookie show, and I listen to them interview whoever the fuck after they're successful. I listen to them interview Nick Matthew after he's done it, after he's made it,
right?
And that's my source of information. And I read my Morning Chalk Up email, and that's my source of information. And I don't think there's anything wrong with either of those things, provided that there's a broad spectrum in between. That you provided that you're taking it. And it comes back to that thing that you and Susie were talking about, where if you only ever watch Channel 1 and you never watch anything else, you're just going to be going around echoing whatever Channel 1 said. That I just think it's shitty that there's as many of us out here as there are, that people, like there's a lot of people in the comments, and I'm not judging anyone for it, but there's a lot of people in the comments that I've read so far saying like, oh, I had no idea that this show existed, or like that kind of way. And it's kind of like, I get it because I'm a nobody, but at the same time, it's like, I bet the new Talking Elite Fitness was around. Do you know what I mean? And it's just that kind of, I get frustrated by that kind of stuff sometimes. And you mentioned kettlebells and cocktails, and I get kind of flustered with some of those kind of shows as well, where like I find they don't say your name, and I like, it's kind of funny. Like I just laugh at it because I just find it funny. And
it is funny. It is. Yeah. Props to them. It is, if they're doing it as a comedic bit, it is pretty funny.
Oh, I don't think they are, but I still think it's funny. But I think there's a lot of shows out there that are afraid of that somehow it'll detract from them if they mention. So like for months, Morning Chalk Up would report on something that was said on your show, but wouldn't say it was said on your show. And it's
Right.
like, well, no one else said it anywhere else. So where the fuck did you get it from? Or like there'd be other, like I've had that a few times where you listen to like say kettlebells and cocktails and you'll hear, and I can't think of a specific example off the top of my head, but I'm willing to bet if I listen to an episode from the last few months, I'll find one pretty quickly. But they'll say, oh, I heard you on another show talk about X, Y, and Z. And it's like, say the fucking name of the show. Like,
I know.
What are you afraid
I
of?
want you to know I took my coffee pods and Wadcast cup to Newport with me, and it was in every show for 2 weeks.
I saw.
Yeah, no one should fucking be afraid. Dude, no, you're not losing anyone. All our advertisers on Buzzsprout or other podcasts.
Yeah.
Like no one's leaving you to go to someone else. This isn't your fucking. Can you imagine being in a relationship with those dudes? You think they protect their wives and their boyfriends like that too?
But I think as well, it's like, it's not even just, I know I named kettlebells and cocktails, but oh look, it's not even just them. Like it's other, like a lot of shows I've noticed, especially, I don't really listen to a lot of shows outside of CrossFit, but a lot of shows in CrossFit specifically are afraid. They're afraid to say, and I'm not sure why, but I'm guessing the reason they're afraid to say another show's name is in case the listener says, oh, what show is that? And like pauses, goes, and doesn't come back. That it's like, you know, like back in when you used to flick through channels, they'd be like, well, don't, like, stay right here, like don't flick the channel just in case you didn't come back.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're afraid of. Whereas in reality, it's that, like, I think a lot of us believe,
if you're talking shit about me, no one's flicking the channel. They're gonna stick around and watch. So don't worry about that.
But I think a lot of us have that viewpoint of rising tides raise all ships. Whereas I think there are some people who hear that and have one hand on the, you know, the plug hole cover, like they have their hand on the chain. Like, everyone else is raising tides and they're just like letting a little bit of water out at a time, just be like, not that much, like, you know.
Yeah. I don't really to be completely honest too, I don't really like the fighting. Like I'm not I like it when I'm doing it. I never feel good afterwards. I always feel dirty. I always feel, some people think masturbation makes them feel dirty. That one doesn't do it for me. But talking bad about other people, it doesn't sit well with me.
I think it's easy to do, isn't it? And it's easy to get
it's easy to do. It's easy to do.
And you get that kind of adrenaline rush and you lose a run of yourself.
Yes.
Like, oh, maybe I said too much. Maybe I was too harsh.
Yeah. And there, especially when they were people who there's elements of them that I admire.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much everyone. There's elements of so many people that I admire.
Is there a topic of conversation, or like is there a type of guest or a topic of conversation that you wouldn't touch? Like, is anything off the table, or does that kind of get you going a bit when you think of something that way?
The only thing that I could think of is I'm open to talk about anything. Yeah, pretty much. Like, if you want to talk about how women shouldn't have the right to vote, I'm all for talking about it. If you want to talk about how abortion, if you want to talk about, I bring the first one up just because it's sort of preposterous. If you want to bring up anything that, you know, that some races are smarter than others, whatever. I really don't care. The one thing that I'm not open to talk about is, someone called on the show once and they wanted to talk about, and I see stuff like this posted every once in a while on Instagram, the validity in pedophilia, and that it's actually a legitimate sexual appetite. And I'm not interested in understanding that in the slightest. I'm completely discriminatory, prejudice, closed-minded about that subject.
That sounds like propaganda perpetrated by pedophiles, to be honest.
And so I don't. I'm open to, like, some guy telling me that I would really enjoy getting fucked in the ass. I'm totally open to it. Like, I'm so open to, like, literally anything. Eating your first shit in the morning. Yeah, let's talk about it. But doing anything to sexualize kids or indoctrinate kids, or to I'm pretty close-minded about. So
Yeah, I think that's fair, to be honest.
Yeah. They got to be protected, man. They got to, even if it was a whole world of fucking those, even a, I mean, I can't imagine what it's like to be, I can't imagine what it was. The sex drive is such a powerful mechanism that it's not that I don't have empathy if you had some sort of weird fetish like that, but I'm 100% certain that it was caused by something horrible that happened to you, that it wasn't organic, that you were indoctrinated into being a pedophile. But that being said, I think anyone who's intellectually honest who is attracted to children still would have to be like, no fucking way am I doing that. It's the same thing with like how I feel about abortion. I can be very intellectually honest about it, that it's killing a baby. I'm certain of it. At some point, just to make this conversation easy, if the baby can survive outside of the womb, it's fucking nuts to do that to a child. But that being said, I am at this torn. I'm torn because I can't put laws on women's bodies, and so I'm fucking torn. But that's the thing. People just need to be intellectually honest with themselves. You don't instead of the people, they want to defend. They want to defend something that because it's part of their identity instead of thinking about it honestly. And it's and they're manipulated. They're manipulated by the fact of how these arguments are couched when people say stuff like it's a women's rights issue or it's a, you know what I mean? Any argument people have, they couch it and they bring it to you on a plate. It's like, dude, let me see the piece of bread. I don't need the plate and the fucking garnish. Let's just fucking look at what this is for what it is. It's hard. Well, it's not hard. Well, once you break the seal, that's the problem too. That's what's scary, by the way. Once you break the seal, once you get red pilled, there's no going back. And that's why people are so offended and defensive, because if the dam does break, you'll be swimming with the people that you've been pointing at as lunatics. But you're not. You're a free man. It's weird, right? Does that make sense? Is that a good picture for you?
Yeah, no, I get it. It makes me uncomfortable talking about it, but I get it.
Okay, good. All right. So on to other things. Kettlebells and cocktails. It's a comedic bit, for the record. I don't know what you're talking about, but okay.
No, because you said it was a comedic bit that they don't say your name, and I said I don't think it is. So that is John or Nikki or whatever, fair play for actually responding.
It might be for John. I buy that, but man, Nikki is like angry. Nikki's like angry. She's angry.
At you mean?
No, just the world.
I think
let's not get it.
Maybe specifically at you as well, though.
Yeah. I mean, she is fucking. She needs a fucking. Someone get her a pinata for her birthday.
A Sevan shaped.
Yeah. Just my face.
One of the benefits I have in the back of my head of not doing live shows is that if something goes off the rails completely, or if it's really shit, like awful, I can just be like, no, I'm not putting that out. You obviously don't have that capability. I remember there was one.
No, YouTube pulls it down for me.
But you had one, like, it was about 6 months ago. I can't remember who it was, but it was
Haley Adams.
No, there was a guy.
Oh, the comedian.
He like didn't speak. It was just like I remember. Did you ask him? Or hey, I screwed you or something. Am I live?
I screwed that up.
Like, yeah, we're live, and there was just nothing.
And like he's taking phone calls from his mom, and he was texting, and he's like, "Can you hold on?" You know, I should have really leaned into that, and that was the only guest I should have gotten in a fight with. I should have just said, "David, you fucking ass." I should have just done a bit. You know what I mean? And instead, I tried to play it off like we're still doing a podcast. That was. You know when you're about to fall, you know, like when you fall, you're not supposed to fall backwards. If you know you're going to fall, you just fall forward. Just keep running forward and just fall forward. You know that thing? Like if you're going down a steep hill or if it's slick and it's icy, don't start doing this. Just lean forward and go with it. That's what I did in that podcast. I started doing this.
Yeah. Are there other episodes where you've kind of hovered over the like unlist on the video, like where you've been like, oh, maybe I should just take that one down?
No, but there's people that have been hard podcasts. Jake Marconi was hard. The lift heavy while you're moving fast guy was fucking hard.
Why was Jake Marconi hard?
because he won't give it up. He wouldn't give it up. He wouldn't like engage me. He wouldn't engage me. Did you see that podcast?
Yeah, I actually enjoyed that one. I thought.
Oh, okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not he's both very nice guys, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Gentlemen. But I just didn't.
Did you think maybe he was wary or like?
I'm not sure. Well, I made this joke on another and he is actually a really good dude, because I made this joke on another podcast. I can't remember what it was, but I teased him and I said, "Hey, Jake Marconi needs to just walk across the country or something." I can't remember how I contextualized it, but then somewhere on some live feed, he was running by in the back. He goes, "Sevan, when are we doing that walk across the country?" You know, so so he leaned into it. But there's people that have been. Okay, so here's one. That debacle I had with Laura Horvath, that was fucking great.
Oh,
like that podcast was so awkward and weird, but I just leaned into it, and we both just bit down on the mouthpiece and just went through it. If I start reflecting on the podcast while I'm having it, I'm starting to think it's a train wreck.
Oh yeah, I've had those.
You know what I mean? Where I'm like, oh fuck, Haley, are we? Yeah, if I say to Haley Adams or whatever, I said to her, "Hey, are we not connecting or something, or what's going on?"
You said that to Medeiros as well once.
Oh yeah. Well, with Medeiros, yeah.
It's a great way to suck the oxygen out of a room.
Yeah, I'm like, David Lucas, yes, from Kill Tony, yes. God, that was.
It's like when you sit down with someone and you're like, "Are we friends? Like,
yes,
do we get on?" I had one. I'm not going to name the person because I'm committed to the assumption that they were just having a bad day. Like, and I don't want to out them in case they were just having a bad day. And I keep telling myself that they were just having a bad day because it was so bad.
Well, I also take a lot of the blame myself. Like, so the last podcast I did with Medeiros was it's so awesome. Like I fucking loved him after that. Like the first one, I was like, oh shit, this is going to be tough with this dude. But then, and same with Ellie Turner. First time I tried to interview her, she was at Wadapalooza. It was a fucking train wreck. Then I had her on the podcast. It was fucking brilliant. So there's also like going back to trying to go back to the fire with it.
This guy or girl person that I had on, so it had been set up for like 2 weeks or whatever. Like they picked the date and the time, and I was like, okay. And then I went live. Not live, but as in I went into the studio or whatever. I think I was using Zoom at the time, maybe. And they no sign of them, so I sent them a message, and then they came on, and they were like in a vehicle, like they weren't driving, but they were in a vehicle, driving across like state lines, I assume, because the reception or the signal or whatever changed so many times to like amazing quality, terrible quality, like like 5G to like Russia in the 40s, like like every 5 minutes. And there was people in the back, like it was like a minibus. There was like 12 people in the back of the vehicle. And I said, like, we were maybe 10 minutes in, and I was like, I'm asking questions here and I'm barely able to hear like the responses. So I said like, oh, would you mind like just maybe asking the people, like just to go a little bit quiet or whatever. And he turned around and said, he said, "Oh, can you guys be quiet for like 5 minutes?" I was like, oh Jesus Christ. And I remember I finished the call dropped in the middle for like 2 or 3 minutes, and I was like, maybe I should just X out of it and just pretend this never happened, just leave and go lie down in the middle of the road. And I finished it, powered through, and I sent it to Brandon Swan. I talked to him about it, and he was like, I need to hear this. Like, he was like, it can't be that bad. I need to hear it. So I edited it together, like, like took out the gaps and stuff from when the signal dropped. And I sent it to him, and it was like 28 minutes long or something. And he replied after about 2.5 minutes and was like, that can literally never see the light of day. He's like, that is the worst thing I have ever heard. Like, he was like, I assumed you were exaggerating, but fuck me, that was train wreck. But he was like, oh,
bad audio is tough, man. Bad audio is tough.
Oh, but it was, I mean, there was fucking people, like, imagine, I was like, when he was like, oh, can you guys just be quiet for 5 minutes? I was like, hey, make it 5 seconds. Fuck this. Like, I'm out. But yeah,
there was a guy I had recently in the car. His name was. There is something about. Stand by. I want to tell you his name. He was the inventor of the most popular board game in. Denmark. Mikkel. Do you know that game, Clask?
No.
That bums me out. I don't even know how to find videos on my YouTube station anymore. There is something about the. Anyway, he was in his car in a parking lot. Clask. Yeah, what was the name of that guy's name? Mikkel something. Anyway, he was in a parking lot of his car, and I was so excited to speak to him. And oh, that's cool. That's cool, Brian. Just got it for my boys for Christmas. And I thought, what I go to this really dark place in my brain, like what a fucking disrespectful asshole. But it ended up being fucking 90 minutes of just gold. Yeah, Mikkel. Thanks, Bruce. Mikkel.
Oh, here we go.
Oh yeah, Bertelsen. Yeah, ended up being. Look at you out there running. It ended up being. I love looking at people's profile pictures. It ended up being just awesome. I was like, so sometimes it's weird, right? Sometimes like you think, hey, they're in their fucking car and it's gonna be horrible. I mean, I've had guys come on the show with just a paper plate and a bunch of weed, and they roll a blunt, and like 20 minutes into the podcast, they can't even talk anymore, like UFC fighter. I'm like, dude.
Is there like, does it frustrate you? Because I know you like doing CrossFit content, and I know you like interviewing CrossFit athletes, and I know you're fascinated with that, the human potential and all that kind of stuff, and like how athletic they are and that kind of stuff, and then their story and their background and stuff. And I know you also like MMA, and I know you also like UFC, and you like just people's stories, I guess. Like, like you couldn't get much further away from Justin Medeiros than an inventor of a Danish board game, really.
Right.
But does it frustrate you when you find someone like that, or someone who's like not from CrossFit, and then it doesn't get the same traction with your?
Hate it. I fucking hate it. I fucking hate it. Not like, not in the way like it's. I don't hate it as in being. I don't take it too deeply personal. It's like 10% personal and 10% humbling, and 80% like I almost maybe feel bad for the other person that they gave so much to me, and only 6,000 people are going to see it. You know, the good thing is we do go on Spotify, as you do too, Spotify, iTunes, you do the whole podcast thing. But it is, I interview some of these fighters, and I've watched fucking 20 of their interviews before I go on, and I know that they just did their best interview ever. Or Kayla Harrison, the lady who's like arguably one of the greatest fighters who ever lived. That podcast I did with her is fucking mind-boggling. And like the podcast I did with Liver King was the only podcast that he did in that early stages, where he talked about the fact that, and we talk about how I knew him before he was the Liver King and he was Brian Johnson, and that the reason why I wanted him on the podcast was for my Meet the Parents podcast. And I wanted him on there because he had cured his kids of his autoimmune diseases by eating organ meat. And I wanted to talk about what it's like raising kids. And that has 30,000 views. And then I watch him on all these other podcasts where you just learn nothing fucking about him, basically where they're just taking the piss out of him. Yeah. And that shit fucking frustrates me. Or like, there's this whole push, and I get why people said it, but even like Joe Rogan's like, yeah, he just did it to sell pills. No, actually he did not just do it just to sell pills. The seed of it was to save his kids. And then the latter part was he's a deeply insecure fucking man. The same reason why you're on steroids, Joe.
He just gets it from cold plunge. That's how he gets. Yeah. Right. If Don,
I do like Joe, by the way. I do like him. I don't want to make it sound like I'm a hater, but and no one, as much content as he makes, no one's perfect. But I just felt like there needs to be, when you have the power that he does, you got to like err on the side of compassion.
If Don Fowler called tomorrow and said, "Hey, we want you to come back and head up the media, but only do that," would you be like, "Okay,
100%, I'm in"?
Why so sure, certain?
Because every time anyone else has ever asked me, I've said no fucking way. But I wanted to give this podcast something new. Hey, do you have a commercial? Can I pee? Do you have a commercial you can run? What would I don't want to leave you here, but I gotta pee, but I don't want to. Are we over soon? I can stay on forever.
No, I mean, you can go wee.
Do you have a commercial? Do you have a commercial you
No,
run?
I'll answer. If people ask questions, I'll
Okay,
respond.
it'll be 52 seconds.
Yeah, you're just gonna do it behind the radiator.
No,
that's in shot, by the way.
Outside my door. I'm gonna come back wet too because it's raining. Don't anyone think I peed on myself.
Okay, he peed up. This is the most viewers and comments I've ever had. It's definitely nothing to do with the guest. It's just all me, baby. Imagine he didn't come back. Is this what Sousa feels like when he goes? You're thinking he's probably got it out now. Probably weeing. Must be nearly finished weeing now. He's just weed on his feet. He's like, oh, fuck, I should have taken off my socks. Probably zipping back up. Coming in. Oh my God, I timed it almost perfectly. Fuck, that was amazing. I go to Miami on the Wednesday, 11th. Yeah, the 11th. That was absolutely hilarious, right? I was like filling time. I'm really shit at filling time, apparently, but I was filling time when you were gone, and I was like narrating what you were probably doing.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, he's probably got out. He probably just realized he weed in his socks a bit. He's annoyed. And then I said, oh, and he's coming back in, and the door clicked. I timed it to absolute perfection. I was fucking chuffed with myself.
Here, can I dig in there where at that last question?
Yes, please.
Okay, so my vision aligns with everyone who works at CrossFit HQ and everyone who should work at CrossFit HQ. 100% to the T. And I say aligns with people who should work there, meaning I've drank the Kool-Aid. I believe it's the cure for the world's most vexing problem. I believe that we should be rolling the red carpet as close as we can to people's front door so that they can be introduced to CrossFit, and that it is an incredible fucking methodology, and it's life-changing. And we agree that what helps that is getting people into affiliates, getting people to take their L1s, and making it accessible to the masses. You would think we would, and I have a proven track record like no one else on planet Earth, not a single person, of pushing that vision for executing on that vision that was given to me by Greg Glassman forward. There's no one. There can't be anyone, because I was the only person who did it the way I did it. I started in end of 2006 and went to 2018 before I had all my staff taken away. And my record completely speaks for it fucking self. Like there's, even if there was someone better than me, they didn't have a chance to do it. So the fact that I wouldn't be embraced to help that effort move forward, and my last 2 years there with the media team were the first time there was an uptick in every metric except affiliate retention that there was since 2014. By that I mean L1 sales, games attendance, traction in the CrossFit Journal, every metric that we had there except affiliate retention. And by the way, I didn't know any of this when I was there. I just had my head down. I've just come to terms with in the last 2 years of how fucking amazing I am at 50 years old. It took me that fucking long. And so there's obviously something going on there that I could move the needle for them in a month. If they brought me on just for 1 month, I could just prove to them I could just move all the needles. I could just sell so many fucking L1s for them just in a month. If they just brought me on, if I was just allowed to just go film at some L1s, and I could drive people into affiliates. And I just made that one-off affiliate commercial in my garage. That took me fucking 15 minutes. It's like, they just know. So why hasn't anyone reached out? If everything I'm saying is true, I know it's a pretty big presupposition, but I believe it. Well, because there's people there who put themselves ahead of, and their conflict or their thoughts about me ahead of what's best for the company. That's the only way I can understand that that mechanism. It may sound completely arrogant. That's fine. I'm open on all aspects of you guys judging me for that. But ask my peer group who's there, even the people who hate me, who knew me for the years. No one's going to say, no one, all of that. I mean, there's people there I hated that I would fucking hire back in a fucking second. Because I put myself aside and I want to see this thing fucking grow. My socks are soaked. It was not pee. It's raining outside.
I just noticed you're taking them off. Yeah, that's funny. But if he said if he said tomorrow you come back, but just
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I would love to participate. I'm open. I don't know if I'd love to. I am participating. I'd love to participate as much as I can. The reason why someone said Sevan loves the affiliates, it's not that I love the affiliates. It's that I sleep well at night knowing that I'm partaking in something that's making the planet a better place, a more hospitable living environment.
Do you and
that's the whole thing. And the affiliates are the means to sharing that message. So they're downstream from my selfishness of being able to sleep at night, knowing I'm giving to humanity.
Do you ever get calls or texts or anything from people that would have worked under you asking like, what would you think if we did this? Or, like any of those kind of like an unofficial consulting role for, say, media plans, or, I'm thinking of like, say, Hebra and Marison when they're doing the games, or like Mariah, I
don't talk to them at all. Although I text with them, very minimal. Like if I see a new gimbal come out, I'll send them a link to it, or if I see something they did, or Hebra was in town recently and he was at one of the popular places on the beach and he took a shot and he said, I'm in town, but from the broadest perspective, you saw everyone saw my conversation with Don Fall. He was on the podcast. I thought that was like, I can't tell you how flattered I was by that. I thought that was awesome and I appreciated that. And I do talk to Dave. It goes through spurts, I'll talk to him every day for a week and then I won't talk to him for a couple of weeks. We don't talk too much about work. We more like pick on each other and crack jokes or whatever, talk about gardening or, guns or just whatever. It's not too much about work. Like the other day he called me and he had just run 16 miles and he was back in his car and he's like, dude, I'm fucked up. I go, yeah, what are you doing running 16 miles? Other than that, I try to I try to leave any of the people I know who work over there kind of alone. I mean, they know that I'm here for them if they needed anything or they wanted to talk to me. I did that show on Daniel Chafee. I had his phone number. I texted him. I said, hey, I just reviewed you. And he wrote back something like, oh, great. But no, I don't have any, I'm just in the community, so I just hear a lot. But the actual employees who work there, I try not to. I know they're going through a lot. I know they're going. It is a very, very, very. It's been for the people who've been there the last 5 years, since 2018. It has been those people will all have. I know this sounds insignificant to what maybe warriors will go to, but they've all had their lives altered. They will all have put. Traumatic stress disorders. Like they will be fucked up from what we went through. It has been a crazy ride and there's no calm sea on the horizon, So, they just lost Gary. I mean, that's crazy. That is crazy.
When you get texts or emails or whatever with, a leaked, there was a lot of it maybe about 8 months ago or whatever, where you get a leaked memo or something sent to you or a text. Do you ever, the way like I know you like to use relationship metaphors, but like if you're going out with someone who cheated on their last partner, either with you or with someone else, and then you'll always be thinking like, God, are they doing it? Are they going to do it to me?
They are.
But when you get those emails or texts from people with like leaking stuff, are you like, okay, I can never trust that person again?
No. And the thing is too is I don't really work in the metric of trust so much. And that maybe because I don't want to hold people, it kind of imprisons people. It's kind of a, I'm very I've told this story a million times, but someone borrows $4,000. If I've been playing Frisbee with you for 5 years and one day you're like, hey, can I borrow $4,000? And then you never pay me back. Like, I'm not mad at you. Like, the friendship's not over. I'm not, it's too much stress on everyone to play the trust game. Now, I appreciate people. There are people that I have very intimate relationships with that I appreciate that they keep our conversations quiet and they know that, but I wouldn't hold them. It wouldn't be a deal breaker for me if they betrayed that trust. I'm a super crazy high level communicator all day, every day. I communicate with a lot of people very intensely, and there's no way they can keep all that in. There's no fucking way they can keep all that in. So I just, no, Jason, you can't borrow $1,000 or $2.
I'm just gonna put that up.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't. I trust them too. Let's say I told you something and I told you not to tell anyone, Peter. I trust you that if you told the person, you did it for calculated reasons. You know what I mean? Like if I told you, hey, don't tell anyone I'm going out to roller skating tonight and I don't want anyone to know because I don't want my kids to know. And then you were like, hey, he's going roller skating tonight. We can set up a surprise birthday party for him when he comes back. Like I believe in this Taoist saying
if we can go out and video him.
Yeah. I believe in the saying, if you trust people, they become trustworthy.
Yeah. I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah, it's a.
I guess you're kind of trusting your own judgment in people to be like, well, I can trust him because my judgment in people is good. Like there's some people who view knowledge as power, as in not even knowledge of, oh, I've read some books and I know some shit, but knowledge is like, I've got dirt on that guy, or I know I got some gossip and that's going to make me important in a room because I can say, if I start talking about this gossip, everyone's going to shut the fuck up and listen to what I'm saying and I'll have the spotlight. And, like I've got the power. So yeah, I'd always be wary. I'd always be wary of that kind of stuff. Like I've been told some stuff in or around the show and it's like either pre or post recording or in a message or something. And like, I tell my wife everything. And that gives me that kind of,
yeah, that's nice.
That gives me that endorphin of like, oh, I just gossiped.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually do any harm with it. I didn't tell.
Right.
Now, if she's doing the same thing, I'm fucked. If she's telling.
She's going to the affiliate and being like, you're never going to believe what Peter told.
She's like lining up 10 people. I just like, don't tell anyone. Okay, so you're provided Don doesn't call, you're hanging around for a while. With your show.
Oh, even I can't give up the show. I'm too far.
Yeah, too deep.
Yeah, I'm too far in. I'm going to.
That's what she said.
Yeah, that is what she said. It's I don't know how the show's ever gonna end now.
Yeah, that's the kind of stage I'm at as well, where it's like,
yeah, you put the painting on the wall and now you're in forever.
Yeah, well, I think the black and white one, I remember saying, I was like selling that to my wife, being like, well, we can paint over that wall with chalkboard paint, and then the kids can like write on the wall. So like that wall being black makes sense. And she's like, right, okay. And then I was doing this one, and she was like, how are we going to hide that one? And I was like, wow, well,
that one's art. That one's art. That one.
Yeah, I was like, they're light colors. I mean, that's, we can tell, like, if the show goes to shit, we can tell people that it stands for something else. It's like cynicism, pride, and something else. Wankers.
It's installation art.
Yeah. So 2023, then we're coming up to a period of time where people make a lot of New Year's resolutions and stuff. Have you got like a dream board for the show? Or do you just keep going and see what happens?
Keep going. I do I do want to do things. I don't know exactly what they are, but a little out of my wheelhouse and comfort. So, you know, I don't know what that looks like, but I'd like to keep pushing the show.
It sounds like it's an interview with a pedophile based on what you're saying earlier on, to be honest.
My biggest concern is that I would right now is that I could if I lost Caleb.
Yeah.
That and I know his deployment will end at some point, and that's going to be a tough pill for me to swallow.
Do you mean that he might have a normal job?
Yeah, I mean, his time commitment is nuts, dude. I mean, and he's on some. I text him 24 hours a day, every hour. I'm coming up with ideas. He's on text threads with guests. And then he shows up every fucking morning, unless someone he needs to work on an injured soldier. And so, and I've become reliant on him. I've become dependent on him. The show. I mean, his persona is even developed on the show ever so slowly, but more and more. And like at the end of every show now, I like to kick the guest off and talk with Caleb for a few minutes. And yeah, I want to keep developing the show. The way I'd really like to do the show is it to be more like Sesame Street. And so I don't know if you know that people, and by that I mean not have pedophiles work for me like Sesame Street did or push drugs on kids, but I just mean in terms of having a broadcast of characters. So I like the idea of having Vellner on for 20 minutes and then having Jorge Ventura talk to us live from the border for 20 minutes and then have a comedian on for 10 minutes or, and then I like the idea of having multiple things at those shows where I had Vellner and Danielle Brandon on in the same show. Like I love that. So I want to make the show more. I want to mix, like that little kid at lunch who mixes his food he's not supposed to.
Yeah.
I'd like to do that more.
Then that food always just gets fucking left.
Yeah, right. It does.
It's like where you pour in
bad
you pour
metaphor,
in the lemonade.
Bad metaphor.
You pour in the lemonade at the end, and you're like, "Oh, I've gone too far."
Yes. I would like to. I would like to keep expanding the stimulation that we're giving to the audience.
Is there someone in probably in CrossFit is easier because I'll definitely know who you're talking about, or I should know who you're talking about. Is there someone in CrossFit who you've, apart from that list, I guess, who you want to have on that you haven't had the chance or you haven't gotten there yet?
I haven't had Nicole Carroll on. That really needs to happen. Anytime I get so we've had some scheduling issues. I've asked her to come on. She said yes, and we had some scheduling issues. And then my confidence wanes. Like it goes. I don't even know if confidence is the right word, but it goes. It changes. I definitely need to have Nicole Carroll on. Like I just need to do that. Like she is a very special human being, and yeah, I just need to do that. And in this space, I'm trying to think.
I'm surprised you haven't done one with Greg. I kind of thought Greg would do one after.
Dude, I've sent him a link 50 times. I've sent him a link. He's like, I'm coming on. And then I sent him a link. He doesn't show up. Should I send him a link now to this show? To be honest, if I'm going to be really honest, I'd like to meet Mal O'Brien. I would really like to interview Mal O'Brien. I'm up for the challenge. I really want to have Haley Adams back on again. I love having Rich on. There was a while when Angelo was coming on quite a bit. I miss Angelo.
Yeah, he's good.
I'm trying to think who. I had Kerstetter on. I wanted to have her on. I had Emma Carey on. These are all people I'd have again. Oh, maybe some of those managers I'd like to have on, like Cooper Marsh or Bijan, or
I've been asking Bijan for the guts of a year.
Yeah.
And I get the double tap.
Just like the heart, sends back a heart. Yeah.
Do you ever go through agents or managers for guests or no?
No, I don't. And anytime you have to work with an agent, it goes to fuck. Oh, I'd like to have Sarah Sigmund's daughter on again. It goes to shit. That's another thing I trip on. I wonder, maybe my head's just way too big, but I always wonder that too, why I don't have, Matt O'Keefe hasn't said to me, hey, I'll represent your show. Maybe he's too busy with Matt Fraser, or you know what I mean? I'm kind of surprised that no one, maybe that's a sign of how unpeddleable my show is.
I don't think that happens though. And I know the Clydesdale have Benji working with them. You know, he's
Oh
with,
yeah, Benji. Benji's
that's
the guy down at Brute. He's with
yeah,
Brute.
yeah.
Yeah,
He's like
I should interview
Sprague's.
him.
Yeah, he's a really cool guy. But that's the only version of that I've heard of. That's the only time I've heard of an agent or a manager working with. Obviously, like Rogan, I assume but you know what I mean, as in this space. So I
Right.
don't think that's a common thing that happens.
Well, it's not a common podcast, Peter.
It's true. The I had something in my head and then I read a comment.
Hate it when that. Have you had O'Keefe on?
Yeah, I love O'Keefe.
He's pretty easy. He's pretty damn good guest, man. A+.
Yeah. He's Woody in Toy Story. Just pull the string. There's a snake in my boot. The funny thing there as you were talking was you were like, oh, once you start going through managers, it falls to shit. Oh, I need to have Sarah Sigmund's daughter on again. Is it whatever the
just
a Freudian slip?
No, yeah. Well, I don't get me wrong. I love Snorri.
Yeah.
But Sarah and BKG, another great guest. I'm trying to think. I haven't had success working through him to get guests on. For example, I think maybe he's the only agent I work with. That's not a dig at him at all, by the way.
No, and I'm the same. I've had a lot of like, oh yeah, we'll make it happen from say him or Cooper or whoever, and I never judge them for it because I mean, when you think about it, like, what the fuck is in it for them? Whereas like if they get them a paid, you know what I mean, like money, then they get a percentage of it. Their athlete gets money. Whatever. Whereas like, oh hey, will you give up an hour and a half of your time for this free thing? That whatever. Have you ever heard of Sam Corbett? You should have him on your show.
Oh, that's the guy who about 1,000 people sent me, 20 people sent me his video he did with Danielle Brandon.
Oh, he's so good. He does his own stuff too with his brother, and he's fucking hilarious, and he's a really good guy as well. When I like that reel that I
unfollowed him after this Danielle Brandon thing.
Why?
Because he had his penis pointed at Danielle Brandon. I won't tolerate that.
I messaged him after the video you sent me, and I put it into a reel. I messaged him and I was like, oh, like it's gonna be too long. Should I make and I gave him no context. And he was like, here's my number, send it to me. Like, I'll give you feedback. You know, he sent me a voice note. It was like, send me it, I'll give you feedback. Cool. Really cool. Don't know him at all. Met him once. I met him once in the toilet at Strength and Depth. I walked past him and he nodded and just said, coffee pods and wads, and then walked out.
That's cool.
I was like, he's a cool guy. But he's funny as fuck as well. You should have him on.
That video that you made, that was impressive how many people participated in that.
Yeah, well, as John Singleton said, I'm the favor guy. Yeah. I messaged him and I was like, hey, I have a favor. And then I was like, brackets, I know. And he replied, was like, well, you are the favor guy. He was like, you just constantly message people asking for favors.
I can't believe I did it. I saw it and then I was just like that's so unlike me to participate in anything like that.
Yeah.
But I was just compelled to. And the video came out great. I was so happy when I saw the video.
Yeah, no, it was funny. I'm proud. That's probably the best thing I've ever made, apart from my kids. But I was only half involved. I only had a consultancy role in those. No, but that was cool. And that's like you were talking earlier on about the about that kind of validation, or that, like I used to chase numbers, I used to chase guests, I used to whatever. Now when I can pull something like that together, I'm like, that's fucking cool. Like when you can ask people for a favor, like the amount of times I've asked Cam Porter to do something stupid, make himself look like a dick. And he's just like, yeah, no problem. Like he probably would do it for anyone, but like it's still cool that he's like, yeah, no problem. Or like,
and he's cool.
Yeah, he's very cool.
Hey, don't be friends with Hiller.
Why?
Because if you don't want to be, he'll make you obsessed with numbers. He loves numbers. He loves analytics. He's always like, like how he talks about on his show. He reads the comments. He's like, he has some goals, and man, he'll like that shit'll leak off into me, and I'll be like, wait, what?
Oh yeah, no, I don't think. To be honest, I don't think I'm at the stage now, and this might change, but I'm at the stage now where I don't think anybody could make me obsess over it again. I think I've just gone so far past, because I know, like, I think your success, like there was a time where I hated you. Fair. Like where your success was like, I viewed it as like not fair. Like I kind of I blamed you and your success for me and my perceived lack of success or whatever. And then I kind of got over it, like really quickly, thankfully, and like instead kind of got on board with the rising tides thing. I was like, like I have to get better if I want to be considered anywhere in that orbit.
I think I remember you saying, sending me a text or an email, like basically, I don't hate you anymore. I was like, oh, this is nice.
Like, I don't hate you. You did. Who's
like, well,
this?
That works out nicely. Isn't it so much better to just fucking be friends with people?
Oh yeah, it is. And I know I said things about Talking Elite Fitness, and I said things about, but like I like Tommy. Like I've met him, and I think he's a nice guy. And
I didn't think you said anything bad about him on this show.
Not about him, but about I kind of threw maybe a sly dig at their show and being a bit boring or whatever. And I said
now you did for sure.
And I talked about kettlebells and cocktails, not naming other shows, but I have nothing against them either. Like I just, there's enough room for everyone, I think. But fuck, what was I talking about?
Money, numbers, chasing numbers, not hating me anymore.
I think there was a long time where I hated you, where I thought, oh, like, why is he successful? And like, why am I not? And, I kind of used your success as a reason for my lack of success or whatever. And then I just kind of got over it and was like, there's plenty of room for everyone. Some people will only ever listen to Sevan, and some people will only ever listen to Talking Elite Fitness, and there are two different groups of people, and that's fine. And some people will listen to both, and that's fine. And then I just kind of got over it, that I was like, there's plenty of room, for everyone. It's kind of like there's 10 in the bed, and the little one said, roll over. And then at the end, the little one says, I'm lonely, and everyone comes back. I think I just went through that phase where I was like, fuck that guy. And then I was like, oh, wait, come, this kind of shit doing it on my own, come back. What were you going to ask me there?
What do your parents think about your podcast?
My mom doesn't know I do it, I don't think. I don't really have a great relationship with her. Not bad. I don't have a bad relationship with her, but I'm not close to her. And my dad, I had Adrian Munweiler on the show a good while ago. And I was telling him about the day before. I was explaining, my dad was coming in for dinner, and I was like, oh, actually come in Wednesday, I have an interview Thursday. And he was like, oh, what's the interview for? And I was like, oh, it's like, I was like, fuck, how do I explain what a podcast is without getting lost in the weeds to like a 77-year-old Irish farmer who like barely changes past the second channel on the TV. I was like, how do I explain this? So I was like, oh, it's kind of like the radio, but it's on the internet. And he was like, all right, okay. And then that was the end of it. And then a few days later, he was coming in, and it was like coming up to like 7:30. And I was like, I better go, I have an interview. And he was like, oh, what's this for? And I said like, oh, it's for the radio thing online, the internet thing. And he was like, all right, okay. And then he was talking to my brother, and my brother rang me and was like, oh, dad is convinced that you're not happy in your job. And I was like, why? And he was like, he said that you keep doing interviews for other jobs. And I was like, no, I mean, I fucking explained to him. How many different ways can I explain this?
Oh, you have the same. I think your dad and my dad are the same guy.
Yeah. So and like my dad, I just don't tell him, like, he doesn't know I'm going to Miami. Like, there's just no point. Like, I remember we got like Wi-Fi at home. We had dial-up, and then we got like broadband, and we got Wi-Fi. And I remember my brother's, he's quite tech savvy, and he made like a network so that we could watch. He had a hard drive connected to the Wi-Fi router so that we could watch films on the TV in the living room, or on like a laptop in a different room or whatever. Like, wow, it was in the cloud, basically, in the house. And he explained this to dad, and he texted me after he explained it to dad and was like, tell me how he explains it to you, because I want to hear it go through his filter and come back out the other side. So I was at home, and I was living at home at the time, and I went out, and I was like, oh, any news? And he was like, oh, I was talking to Chris there. He was saying he's going to put videos in the house. And I was like, oh, here we go. I was like, right, how's that going to work? And he's like, oh, you'll be able to watch anything. Once we have it, you'll be able to watch anything anywhere. And I was like, that's accurate so far. Okay, he's got it. And I was like, that's cool. And he was like, yeah, so I could be at the hob, like the cooker. And he was like, and I can just watch it on the wall. And I was like, I was like, we've lost it. And then he was like, or walking down the hall, like I could leave the hob and go to the toilet, but it'll come with me down the wall to the, and I was like,
Wow.
oh, hang on, this isn't fucking 2055. Like you've gone.
Wow.
I was like, I don't think that's accurate. He's like, well, that's what he said. I was like, is it what he said though, or is it what you heard? Like, you know, that they're two very different things. But yeah, no, my dad knows but doesn't understand the show, and my mom doesn't know that it's a thing. I don't know.
My it's interesting. My mom watches, I think, all the shows, but I don't think she appreciates. I mean, I know she does. She doesn't like a lot of the stuff I say.
Yeah,
which is, it's interesting. And now, especially now that I have kids, I don't want my kids saying stuff that I'm not gonna like. But it's cool. She makes it very easy for me. She's very, 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 very supportive. Peter talking about his dad on the Dad podcast with Travis Mayer is pure gold. Oh, I did listen to that in the beginning.
Yeah, that was possibly one of my favorite moments of the show so far, of like the 3 years, was just Travis. And I think if it had been just me and Travis, it would have lost. But the fact that Dalton was there and was like, he was like the straight guy to the comedy going on around him, where he was like, no, just let him finish, just let him keep going. And Travis just like, what the fuck is going on? But that was one of those where I started talking. That was like me on Clydesdale, where I started talking, and then I was like, just keep talking and it'll fix itself. Like, have you ever watched The Office, you know, with Steve Carell? And
yes,
where he's like, sometimes I start talking and I don't even know what I'm going to say. It's like, that's what was happening, where I was just talking and then I was like, well, I guess I'm talking about my parents' divorce. And it was just like, kept going. Yeah, no, that was fun though.
How do you know Michael? How do you know Michael Dalton?
From through this show, like, I'd consider him a pretty good friend. But through this show, where I saw he did was it the Nanos ad with Rich Froning Sr.? And it was done like the night before Christmas. It was a video, and I think Ari Hurst was still at Reebok at the time, and she shared it, and I saw it through her page, and then I saw the little, camera emoji of Michael Dalton, or like Michael is Hustle or whatever at the bottom, and I clicked on it, asked him to come on the show, and he was like, I mean, I don't know why you want me on, but I'll come on. And I just fell in love with him. I just think he's so cool, such a cool guy. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the best things that's come from the show, is those kind of relationships.
He's still working. He's not. Is he employed with CrossFit, or is he just a
contractor?
No,
I think he's contracted.
Yeah.
To as far as I know, I'm not 100. I'm not speaking on that with any authority, but as far as I know, he does his own thing, and he does some stuff for them. I think last year's documentary, he did like the graphic, the titles and the all that kind of stuff, and he does a lot of he does a shit ton of like short, him and Richard Bloomer do a lot of quick turnaround videos from competitions. They went to all the semi-finals, and like they work together as a little duo. Well, a big duo. They're both quite tall.
Who's Richard Bloomer? I don't know that name. Is he new?
Yeah, he's from can't remember the name of the company. He has his own company, I think, or works with another company, but he comes in and does stuff for them. He is like one of the most handsome men I've ever seen in my life.
Richard Bloomer.
Like crazy handsome. But yeah, him and Michael do all they do like really funny ones. They did one recently where it was like heavy lifts, slow-mo, but like,
he looks like Ronaldo.
Yeah, he's very handsome. He's even more handsome in real life. It's like, why are you behind the camera?
He looks like Ronaldo.
But they did these videos, and they've done them. I think that's why I like Michael so much, is that he doesn't do like, here's someone doing a lift and that's it. But they do videos of, like, say, people doing a lift. He put one up recently of people doing a lift in slow motion, but he's doing like cat noises. So like Fikowski's like standing up, like a real heavy squat with his mouth wide open, and Michael's like meow, like overdubbing it.
Yeah,
or like
that's cool.
they do like songs and stuff, like make up songs around the
Oh yeah, this is a nice Instagram account.
Yeah. He does a lot of stuff outside CrossFit. He does a lot of stuff in Africa. I don't really know what he does, but he does a lot of like I think it's a charity focused stuff over in Africa, where he, like creates content for some company over there or something, or someone involved with, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know a lot about him. I should probably stop talking about him.
I don't recognize him though. I wish
he might be newer. He might be post 18, maybe.
Strata House. That's the name of his.
That's
company.
it. Yeah. That's it. But yeah, he's cool. He's a nice guy as well. A very nice guy. Yeah, I think I've covered pretty much everything I wanted to talk about, and I need a wee now as well.
I heard a baby. I heard a baby too.
Yeah, that's she's 3, but she's happy. That was a happy shout.
Oh, good.
That's the one who shit herself when Boz was on, and I had to go clean it up and leave him for 12 minutes. He just sat there waiting.
Oh wow, what a good dude. Boz is a great dude too.
Good. Yeah, so good. Yeah, no. That's her claim to fame, is that she shit herself asleep. She was asleep and did it. She's 3. She's not like 25. That would be weird if she shit herself.
That would be weird.
No, I appreciate you coming on. It's been great to catch up. Really good. Really appreciate it. I appreciate everything you do as well. Like I said,
thanks for not hating me anymore.
Well, like I said, there's a lot of stuff, or some of the stuff that you say at least, where I think that makes me feel uncomfortable or whatever. But I think I'm growing into, or I'm leaning into it a bit. But I think that if people can look past the story that they've told themselves about you, I think that, you know, you're a mine for the community there. That, you know, the affiliate video you made, for example, like that kind of stuff is timeless and priceless.
Thank you.
But yeah, keep you don't even need to tell you to do it, but keep doing what you're doing, and thank you.
You're welcome. It's pouring rain. That's why the kids are just inside the house today. Ken Walters.
Oh,
thank you, brother.